Army captain removed from first class by a racist woman. His response will leave you in tears. The captain's powerful response that left everyone speechless. What would you do if someone demanded you leave a space, insisting you didn't belong there? This is the shocking story of one man who faced that exact moment, and his response will leave you speechless. It was a quiet Tuesday morning, and the hustle and bustle of the airport filled the air. Among the travelers boarding a flight from New York to Los Angeles was Captain David Alexander, a proud African-American man and a decorated Army officer. David had just returned from an overseas mission and was finally taking a much-needed vacation. Dressed in his crisp uniform with his medals gleaming, he stepped into the first-class cabin and quietly settled into a window seat. As he gazed out at the tarmac, a woman in her early 30s entered the cabin, her designer handbag in one hand and a scowl on her face. Her name was Barbara Turner, the wife of a prominent politician. She scanned the cabin with sharp eyes, stopping abruptly when she spotted David. For a moment, she stared, seemingly trying to process what she was seeing. Then, with a determined stride, she marched toward him. "Excuse me," she said loudly, her voice catching the attention of the entire cabin. "You're in the wrong seat. This is first class." David turned to her calmly. "I know, ma'am. This is my seat," he replied, showing his boarding pass with a polite smile. But Barbara wasn't satisfied. "There's no way you belong here," she snapped, her tone laced with disdain. "People like you should be in economy, or better yet, you shouldn't even be on this flight." A hush fell over the cabin as passengers turned to watch. David could feel the weight of their gazes, but he remained composed. "Ma'am, I assure you, I paid for this seat just like you did," he said evenly. Barbara's face flushed with anger. "I don't care who you think you are," she spat. "You need to move. I won't sit next to someone like you. This is America, not Africa." Her words hung heavy in the air, but David refused to let her see his pain. Instead, he looked at her and said, "Ma'am, I'm an Army captain. I've served this country for over 15 years to protect the freedoms we all enjoy, including your right to say what you just did. But that doesn't make it right." Barbara scoffed. "Army captain," she said mockingly. "I don't care if you're the president. My husband is a powerful man, and I can have you removed from this flight. Either you move, or I'll make a scene you'll never forget." David remained calm, his eyes locked on hers. "Ma'am, you've already made a scene," he said firmly. The tension was unbearable. A flight attendant quickly approached, trying to defuse the situation. "Is there a problem here?" she asked. "Yes," Barbara declared, pointing at David. "This man doesn't belong in first class. I demand he be moved to economy immediately." The flight attendant looked stunned, but regained her composure. "Ma'am, he has every right to be here. This is his seat." Barbara wasn't done. Turning back to David, she sneered, "Why don't you go back to where you came from? People like you don't belong here." David took a deep breath. He could have responded with anger, yelling, arguing, or even walking away, but he chose a different path. In a steady voice, he began to speak. "Ma'am, do you know the history of African Americans in this country? Do you know the sacrifices we've made, the struggles we've endured, and the contributions we've given to build this nation? My ancestors were brought here against their will, forced to work, to suffer, to fight for rights that should have been theirs from the beginning. And yet, despite all that, we've continued to serve, protect, and contribute. I wear this uniform not for myself, but for everyone, including you. Love and respect aren't reserved for people who look like you. They're for everyone. This country is at its best when we stand together, not when we tear each other apart. So no, ma'am, I will not move, because I belong here just as much as you do." Barbara opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, a voice from across the aisle cut in. "Well said, Captain," a man in a business suit declared, clapping slowly. Others joined in, applauding David's words. Barbara, realizing she had lost, sank into her seat, her face pale with embarrassment. The flight attendant quietly handed her a warning card, informing her that any further outbursts would result in her removal from the flight. The rest of the journey was uneventful, But the story didn't end there. Unbeknownst to Barbara, one of the passengers had recorded the entire incident on their phone. The video went viral, sparking outrage across social media. Within days, Barbara's actions were condemned by millions. Her husband released a statement distancing himself from her behavior, and the company she worked for issued a formal apology before announcing her termination. But for David, it wasn't about revenge. When asked about the incident in an interview, he said, "I didn't speak up to humiliate her. I spoke up because silence allows hate to grow. We need to stand up for what's right, not with anger, but with love and courage." And that, my friends, is the lesson we can all take from this. In the face of hate, we have a choice: to retaliate or to educate. Captain David Alexander chose the latter, reminding us of the power of love, respect, and unity. So the next time you witness injustice, ask yourself, will you stay silent or will you stand up? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Together, we can shine a light on stories that matter and inspire change. See you in the next video. If you've watched this far, let us know which country you're watching from and drop 100 points in the comments, because you're the kind of person who finishes what they start.